Gymnastics just means coordination and moving your body. Okay, get rid of the backflips and all that stuff. Like that can come. And I was like, oh, they're basically to do preschool gymnastics. You're doing obstacle courses. And I was like, well, that's something I would like to do now as a grown up. And 10-year-old Mike McGrath would definitely want to do that. And the individuals I served as a teacher would 100% want to do that because they were all high energy.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Grow Healthy, Help People podcast, a podcast that Accordis, our company, puts on. We are here with Mike today from the River City Inclusive Gym. How are you today, Mike?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the
Yeah,
opportunity.
absolutely. Where are you calling from today?
So I'm calling from Richmond, Virginia, the River City Inclusive Gym. We serve basically Richmond, Virginia, and the surrounding counties.
Okay, wonderful. So, before I get into everything that you do over at the gym, I want you to tell me a little bit about where you got started. Were you always involved in nonprofits, or is this just kind of something that happened for you?
No, I wish I had always been involved in
Yeah.
nonprofits. The last 10 years would have been a lot easier. So my background is special education. I was a teacher before beginning the gym. I was a special education teacher at the elementary level for a really long time, about 13 years. And then I when my first son was born, I just needed a change, and I had plans to be like a stay-at-home dad, and that is very difficult, much more difficult than any stay-at-home parent, much more difficult than I had anticipated. So I found myself needing to kind of get out of the house a little bit, and I had tutored while I was a teacher, on the side. So I just started picking up clients to tutor, and was kind of building kind of a tutoring caseload because that was easy because I could make my own hours and work around my wife's schedule and my son's schedule. And then I met the owner of River City Youth Fitness, a traditional gymnastics gym, a man named Fletcher Hamlin. And I had talked to him about maybe tutoring some of the people in his waiting room while they were waiting to do their classes. And he knew my background in special education, and he was like, you should start a gymnastics class, for individuals with autism. And then I said, no, that sounds like a terrible idea. And he said, you should really consider it. And then what I did was I just went home, did a bunch of research, like a lot of research on inclusive gyms, inclusive gymnastics, inclusive recreational sports. And honestly, I was shocked that there wasn't much out there.
Mm.
There wasn't a lot out there at all. And then I went and I watched a bunch of his classes, like in terms of it, went and watched a lot of the preschool gymnastics classes Fletcher was doing, and I watched a lot. I watched about five, and I was like, oh, first of all, gymnastics just means coordination and moving your body. Okay, so that like we're not get rid of the backflips and all that stuff. Like that can come. And I was like, oh, they're basically to do preschool gymnastics, you're doing obstacle courses. And I was like, well, that's something I would like to do now as a grown up. And 10-year-old Mike McGrath would definitely want to do that. And the individuals I served as a teacher would 100% want to do that because they were all high energy.
Hmm.
And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. And so I called up several of my former students and one of my nephews, and I said, hey, if you guys aren't busy the next 6 Saturdays, I want to try something with you. And so I tried doing basically these obstacle course classes with them, kind of like Ninja Warrior, but it was looked less like Ninja Warrior at the time because we didn't kind of have the formula down. We hadn't really refined anything, but everything was in an obstacle course. And then after that like pilot program, I said to the parents like, hey, what do you guys think? They were like, do it again and offer it more. So we gradually grew from that. So we grew from one class of, I think five was in the initial pilot class, and now we're at 40 classes a week with an enrollment of 250 athletes ages preschool through adulthood, all types of needs, all abilities. We don't turn anyone away. We have individuals that are neurotypical, like we have some siblings that come. So like maybe one sibling has a diagnosis, one is neurotypical. It's something they can do together, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoy saying this, but it's going to sound terrible. Like it's a lot more fun than teaching, because at its basic level, you're just helping people play, you know, and teaching them to play. And for the adults, we're basically tricking them into exercising, you know, because everybody needs to move their body, and a lot of the individuals we serve have difficulty moving their body. It's not easy. They don't have, maybe, they have some motor planning issues, or maybe they don't have the internal drive or the understanding that like I need to move my body to be healthy, like you and I. That's what forces me to get out of the chair. And some people's threshold for movement is just different, so doing what we do at the gym, there's something for everyone, like in each, we have the gym is set up into four unique obstacle course rooms. In each room, there's at least one activity someone will like. So if we just need to stay on that activity the whole time, that's fine with us, you know. So that's basically how it started. I think the kids call it the origin story.
The origin story. I love it. Well, I know that you and I touched on this a little bit, but when you're talking, you're really providing occupational therapy without providing occupational therapy because they're getting all those motor skills and they're working out those things that they would in therapy, but they're getting that from you too. It's almost like a bonus.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I had mentioned when we did our pre-interview chat is like I had no idea because my understanding of occupational therapy from being in the school system was like, come to find out, it was zero. Like they do so much more than what I saw in the school. There's a big focus on handwriting or typing. At least it was my experience. Like I only had one student in my 13 years that had a sensory diet. So basically activities to meet their sensory needs to regulate their sensory system. But doing this, I've also connected more deeply with some really reputable occupational therapy therapists in the area who understand what I'm doing, have been to the gym, and they've been able to tell me, "Hey, you're doing this, you're doing that." Like we have done sensory processing workshops for our families, and it's been eye opening for me. Again, because I don't know, I'm not an OT, and I don't know the science behind it, but what I see looks great to me. People improving balance or coordination, or someone coming in, upset, or dysregulated, and then they swing for 5 minutes, and that really, regulates them. Like I don't know the science behind that or why that works. And it wasn't until talking to OTs doing this that I actually knew that there's something to that. You know what I mean? So it's really neat. And now we have a lot of occupational therapists in the area that'll be like, hey, keep coming to OT, but you're only, I don't know, they go once a week or twice a week, and while you continue to do this, you should go see Mike and check out the gym. So it's been really good. Like, I think it's a good complementary activity for those families, and I definitely don't want it to come across as like I know anything about OT or PT. Like I can help you move your body, and that seems to help people, and it seems to be doing. There's some crossover there, so it's really has been eye opening for me for sure.
So, when you were teaching, and now that you've swapped from teaching, do you look back now and think, if I would have known like how all this movement can help
Oh
and
yeah.
can regulate, I would have done things differently as a teacher?
Oh, 100%. Because and I knew it, but I didn't understand it, and I didn't give myself the okay to do it. You know what I mean? So like I knew about year two, like, hey, I need to give my students like heavy work to do. So I would have some students, and I would load up a milk crate with dictionaries, and I would have them take that from my room, which was on one end of the school, to the office, and set it down, and then we go back and get it like 30 minutes later. Doing that heavy work really seemed to refocus them. But I didn't do it with everyone. I only did it with one or two because it was an accommodation written into their IEP. So that's just one example. Like now that I know, like I would have done that with every student every half hour, if not 15 minutes, or something similar. And while I was teaching, I knew like, hey, this heavy work is working for so and so, but I was so caught up and out basically worried about not meeting IEP goals that I didn't allow the time all the time to do that. Even though I could see the benefit, I could see like after we do this heavy work or after we go out on the track and run around for 10 minutes and we come back, the class or the single student is much more focused. But I just didn't, I think maybe I didn't have the understanding or the confidence to be like, if a principal or someone higher up addressed me like, why are you doing this, to be like, I have to do this every 20 minutes for these students because it's helping to focus them. Even though everyone knows that, hey, and that's why you get breaks during long meetings because you can't focus that long. But it's just, for me, I just didn't have the confidence to be like, it, or the understanding to be like, look, we have to do this every 20 minutes. You know, for some students, I did, but it's beneficial for every student. That's definitely what I would go back and do.
Yeah, absolutely. So you went from, I'm curious to see, were there challenges going from doing elementary school to now you're working with all age ranges? Are there challenges there, or is it
Yeah,
all
the
the same
biggest
across the board?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is unfamiliarity
Yeah.
because doing what you're familiar with is easy because you're familiar with it. So yeah, I was 100% nervous. I mean, every new athlete that comes in, they don't make me nervous, but you do get a little bit of butterflies even after 10 years because you don't know them. You don't know their triggers. You don't know their response to specific words. You don't know the best way to encourage them. But going from working in the elementary age to teens and adults was nerve wracking. But at the difference was that I got parent input. So I didn't have any issues where, in the school system, if I went from elementary to middle school, all I would have was an IEP. I wouldn't have the parents there and I couldn't ask them questions in the heat of the moment like, hey, I got Bill over here, does he like this, and this in real time? And so I didn't have any issues and still don't asking the parents, like, hey, because the parents are available to see what we're doing in the gym. So if I need them, I will call them. I always say, like, our goal is to not need you at all and you get a break, but it doesn't always work that way,
Oh,
if especially when they're getting to especially when we're building that rapport. So yeah, it was nerve wracking in the beginning, but once I realized, like, well, I have the person that knows them best sitting right here. Just ask them how this 25-year-old walks on a balance beam, or does this 25-year-old have, I don't know, like texture sensitivity, so they're not going to walk on a mat, or things like that. So it was not as hard as I thought it was going to be. And that has carried over when working, because I had limited experience working with anyone that has mobility issues, particularly like an individual that might use a wheelchair. So it just like, okay, well, I need to ask the person who knows best, which is their parent or caregiver.
yeah, absolutely. So I heard one thing you just said a few minutes ago, and you called them an athlete, and I love that. Like you said, every new athlete that comes in, I just love that train of thought, like letting them know, like, hey, you're an athlete when you walk through these doors.
Yeah, that's for multiple reasons. One, everyone wants to belong, right? So like these people, these athletes are coming to the gym and they're doing stuff that's super hard that not everyone can do, whether they have a disability or not. It takes a lot of skill to do it. So why wouldn't they be athletes, right? And then on top of that, and belonging part, like everyone wants to be a part of the team. Not every athlete that comes to the gym can go. So, not everyone that comes to RCIG can play on a baseball team or a soccer team. So this is a chance for them to be an athlete and to be a part of a team. So it's important that we address them as such, and every new person that comes to the gym, when they first join the gym, they get not this hoodie, but something like to identify them that you're a part of the club. Whether you wear it or not, you get a free T-shirt, even if you don't want it, because you're a part of the team, because it's important to have a place where you're accepted and you belong, no matter who you are or how old you are.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I just know that makes him feel so valued and important. And I just absolutely love that. So, okay, when you started this, you had this idea from someone who
Mhm.
already owned a gym. Did you start in that gym or?
Yeah.
Okay,
We
gotcha.
did, like, honestly, after the first day of, so my very first class with these five former students and my nephew, or four and one, whatever it was. After that class, I was like, my eyes were opened, and I was like, okay, forget tutoring. This is what I have to do. Like a full, like God calling me to do this, like type moment. And the reason is what I saw in that 1 hour was freedom. It's hard to explain. So like just the kids, I'll call them kids or students, my former students, were just free to be themselves. I knew them in the school setting where everything was a challenge. I mean, just walking down the hall was a challenge. But here they were, there weren't any restraints. There were limited restrictions. They were free to do whatever they wanted and just play. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're going to do. The owner of that gym, Fletcher, was very nice. He's like, hey, I'll help you get this started. And then at any point, you're free to do whatever you want. So like he had one of his interns at the time was like my first volunteer other than my siblings. And then she's got a full-time job there. And she told me later that she told him, every time Mike has his class, I want to work with him. So put me with him for that hour. And she became our first employee. And then basically those first 6 years was we were 6 years we rented space from this guy, was us figuring out how to do what we do, and like one and saving money, because eventually we need our own space, kind of refining our process. What where we started wasn't really conducive to serving all needs. And so I was like, okay, well, when we get our own facility, each course needs to be defined. There need to be 4 rooms. There can be more swing, things like that, so that we can take anyone who wants to be there. Not, and I didn't turn anyone away at that time either. It was just definitely didn't serve the athlete in the best way possible, because his facility wasn't set up that way, you know. So I would like basically rent time slots from him. Like I could rent like 10 o'clock on a Saturday, and then I would have a break, and then I could rent like, 1 to 3 on Saturday, and then 7 to 8 on Monday. And that's kind of how it progressed. But in the beginning, for probably for the first year, it was like one class of five, then 2 classes of 6, and then, oh, we can add another class type deal. Yeah, so it was really good.
Yeah. And now you have 40,
Yeah, yeah,
which
and
is insane.
we have a very long wait list too.
That's
Like
incredible.
which people are like, "Oh, that's a problem," and it it's not necessarily a problem. It's just a growth issue, right? We just
Right.
have to figure
Right.
out how we can serve everybody the right
Yeah.
way. And the reason the wait list, and it does make you feel good because it means people like you.
Yeah.
You feel terrible because you can't serve everyone that wants
Right.
to be served right away.
Right.
And for us, our classes are small, so our average athlete class each class is 6, and it's a one-on-one ratio. So everyone that comes, yeah. So that's part of the reason we're a nonprofit, is because we have to have a very small class size to meet the needs of the athletes, to make sure they're safe, make sure they're, you know, making progress, make sure they're having fun. And we found that the only way you can do that is one on one. There are some athletes you can pair up like two and one, or but for the most part, like out of 40 classes, 35 of them, everyone's one on one. Yeah.
So, with your staff, where's your staff at right now? How many staff and how many volunteers do you have?
Oh, so that's a we are very volunteer heavy, like incredibly volunteer heavy. We could not do this without volunteers. So, um, for 2025, I just had to turn this number into the accountant. For 2025, we had 100 individual volunteers, and we logged over 3,000 volunteer hours for yes, so it's kind of wild. Um, and but staff wise, there's three full time staff and six part time staff. Two of the part time staff are like significant part time, like you know they're slightly under full time, and um and that's just the hopefully this year we can hire another part time person. I have to look at our the budget, but yeah, we're very volunteer heavy, um,
Okay,
which is
which is
always
awesome. I
it
mean,
is
it's awesome that you
great.
have the volunteers that people are coming out for it.
It is great, but it's always scary too because
Right.
volunteers don't have to be there,
Yeah, that's true.
you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But I am
Yes.
internally grateful for our volunteers because when it's a mix of adults, just random adult volunteers that
Hmm.
have lives like you and me that are like, hey,
Yeah.
after work, I can go volunteer at this gym. College students in high school students. And when I was in high school, I wasn't trying to volunteer anywhere. So that's really awesome to see these young people who are like, yeah, I want to give back. Um, especially because I know like that is not what I was thinking about at 17, you know. So,
Yes, so true. So true. So, what right now would you say your biggest challenge is?
volunteers.
Volunteers. Yep. Just
Yeah,
continuing
or
to,
like staffing. So let's call it
yes.
staffing. Like
Yes.
staffing includes volunteers and paid positions.
Yes.
That's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So, where do you see yourself down the road? Or do you have plans for the future?
Yeah, yeah,
What are you guys looking forward to?
yeah. That's a great question. So are so long, not long term in terms of plans. It's more of like a short term, 5 years or less goal, is to get a larger facility. So if we get a larger facility, we can increase the class size because we don't have the limited space. So the facility we're in right now, on paper, can hold about 300 athletes a week. So if and we're at 250, so we need to start saving money to. It'll take us, unless something drastic happens, 2 to 3 years to raise the money to be ready to increase our facility. There's a possibility that we could increase the facility where we are, or we would just move to a bigger location. So those are the two possibilities. So that's more of like a short term goal, or the shortest term goal is to serve more athletes in 2026, right? Then a midterm goal would be a larger facility. And then after that, like, 10 years down the road, there's no reason that what we do here in Richmond can't be done in other places.
Right.
It's not that hard, you know.
Exactly. Yes.
You have to
Anybody can do
show.
it. They just have to have the will and the,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
the drive to do
They
it.
just have to not know better. Like,
Right.
I think that's why it happened for me because I didn't know any better.
Right. Yeah.
Like, had I gone to like a business school or anything like that, I definitely wouldn't have done what I did. Or if someone was like, "Oh, hey, for the next 10 years, this is what you're going to do," and I would have been like, "Yeah, I don't think so." What's your in it? You're like, "Oh, well, I'm in too deep now," and so yeah. So those are like, immediately have more athletes per week.
Yes, absolutely.
Midterm goal, increase our space so then we can of course increase our athlete numbers and serve more
Right.
people. And then long term, maybe do this somewhere else or help
Yeah,
someone to do it somewhere else. You know,
absolutely.
I wouldn't be able to do it somewhere else, but I could show someone
But
how.
you can train people up to do it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love that. And if you're listening to this and you're a nonprofit leader, things like this, capital campaigns, raising funds to really grow your nonprofit, this is something that Acordis can truly help with. We work really hard on the back end to help with database, website, graphic design, social media, and fundraising, creating those campaigns and those marketing tools to help you get to where you want to be in your nonprofit, to grow your vision, to grow your mission. We want to be there to help support you in that. So if that's something you're looking for or you need help with, there will be a link at the end of this video, and we would love to help you out. So, one last question for you. You have people volunteering with you, that's your biggest need. What's the easiest way for people to connect with you, to figure out how to volunteer or to work with you?
The easiest way to get in touch with anyone, whether it's, so I'm going to steal this line from someone else, but he always said, as a nonprofit, we need people's time, money, and resources. So the any easiest way to donate your time, money, or resources to us is to just go to our website, rcig.org, and all the information you need, whether you want to donate, if you want to volunteer, if you just want to get in touch with someone, if you want to find out information on putting one of your son or daughter on our waiting list, or you just want to come and tour the gym. So one of the things, my personal goal is to give more tours of people to the gym that don't know anything about the gym, because it makes a big difference to see it in person and to see some athletes in action.
Yes.
So if you're interested in anything like that, go to our website, rcig.org. And then we are on the usual social media like Instagram and Facebook, but the website has everything at just rcig.org.
Wonderful. And we will have that link at the end of this episode so you guys can check it out. And I encourage you to, if you're in the area, go take a tour, go get involved. It is a great organization, and I highly encourage you to check it out. Mike, I have really enjoyed talking to you today and learning more about RCIG. I hope that you reach all your goals and you guys can get into that new, bigger building.
Yeah.
But I just really appreciate you spending time talking to us today.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys next time.
You too.